Today's episode is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/figure out your life. With over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, and Kindle. Now let's get to the show. Welcome to Figure Out Your Life podcast, the podcast where we try to find some answers to life's everyday questions. I'm your host, Toya T, aka Toya T PhD, aka Sister from Another Mister, aka the Mistress of Storytelling, aka the one that finds things out so you don't have to. Oh my gosh, let me stop being silly. Hey guys, welcome back. It is a new week, and I am back to my regular schedule. Thank God. Let's all clap. I should find an applause, soundbite for that. But we're back. I'm back to a Monday. A few things I want to update you guys about since the last time that we spoke. So as you saw, I didn't do the extra episode that I said I might do. But then again, I also said I'll talk to you when I talk to you because I wasn't trying to put that pressure on myself. But a couple of things have happened since we last spoke. One, I lost some weight. Which is great because when I was in Thailand for 2 weeks, just living my life and particularly just eating some of the yummiest, delicious food that I've ever tasted, way better than what they serve you here, which kind of has turned me into a Thai food snob. I went to the food court today in the mall, and the first restaurant you get to at the South Shore Plaza in the Boston area is the Thai place. And they're like, ma'am, you want sample? And I'm like, no. I'm looking at the menu. I'm like, this ain't no real Thai food. This is the Thai food. This is the Chinese made in China version of Thai food. And not even the made in China Thai food, because they still have better Thai food than what we have in these fast food places. So I was just like, I can't do it. But somehow I lost weight. I finally reached a weight loss goal. I ain't gonna tell you what it was, but I had a goal to get underneath a certain pounds, and I finally got there. I've had that same goal for maybe months, and I finally reached it, which is funny that it came after I went on vacation and was just eating just eating delicious food. But then again, they have actual smaller portions than us, and their food is also pretty spicy. So I think, as they say that spicy food helps with your metabolism, I think that was helping. But I also came back and was just trying to acclimate myself back to non-Thai food, and I've been eating a lot healthier and then going to the gym and working out. So I think that also helped too. So both of those things happened. I also am back on a normal sleep schedule. It took a while, but I got there, and it feels good to get back to my 8 hours of sleep and actually waking up in the morning and not in the middle of the afternoon or in the evening like I was the week I came back. Also, I have some good news. I got a job offer last week. Now, I won't give you guys any details. I'll give you more details on a later episode. It might be next week's episode, since I'm still negotiating with them. And this is the first time I've actually negotiated a salary with an employer. And so, and to do so, I actually looked up, Googled how to negotiate a salary. And I was lucky enough to find some information, a little short webinar from the AAUW site, which is let me look it up so I don't sound stupid, because every time I think of it, I cannot think of what the AAUW stands for. But I know it's a women's organization, but I just want to make sure I give you guys. It's the American Association of University Women. So their whole point is advancing equity for women and girls through advocacy, education, philanthropy, and research. And I knew about them because they have fellowships for graduate students, female graduate students, and so I knew about them from their fellowships. But they're also very useful outside of trying to get money to go to graduate school or do research. they also have like tons of information, like they say, trying to help with women and girls get, equal rights and actually get equity in different parts of their lives through these different ways. And it was really useful for me because they had like a PDF, which I will share with you guys when I do that episode about negotiating salaries. And they had like a mini webinar that I kind of like quickly went through. Like I went to exactly what I needed to know. So the part that I actually used was like negotiating for a new job, or I think it was for a new job or internal hire. So you're in a brand new position. This is a new job offer, and how do you broach negotiating your salary in a way that will be receptive to the employer. So I went through that, I think it took me like an hour to kind of like go through that. And then I used their templates and their examples to craft an email and tell them why I think I deserve to be paid a little bit more, based off of how they said that they were developing their salary. So I'll let you guys know how that works out, but I won't give you any details until I've signed the contract and I have this new salary and I can say, look at the results I got. Or if they weren't receptive, like I can just tell you that. So I'll wait till that. But anyway, yeah, your girl got a job offer. So I am 2 for 2 for this year. Yay for me. It was finally good to get a yes. But that is not the topic of today's podcast. Today's podcast actually came from when I was traveling in Thailand. The idea came, I don't know where I was in Thailand, but I know it was just something that kept running through my mind. Like this whole idea of things that you learn about yourself while traveling solo. And, this trip was not an expected solo trip. I had booked it for 2 weeks, but then I knew that my friend was going to join me, and then she ended up not joining me because of the whole coronavirus outbreak. And so I ended up having to spend 2 weeks by myself in Thailand, which is the longest solo trip I've ever taken. I took a solo trip in 2019, which would be last year. Last year, I went to Cartagena, Colombia, and I was there for, I think, 4 days, maybe 5 days, 4 nights. And before that, I took a trip to Martinique. So I've only done 3 solo trips, and the one to Martinique was also maybe 3 nights, 4 days. So they were really short. They weren't like a full week. And this was 2 weeks by myself, with myself. And I just thought it was interesting, the kind of time that I was given to really spend time with myself and get to know myself. And so I thought that it would be a great topic to talk about. And so I put it into Google, when I do all my research before I start doing the podcast. And I was surprised to find that there was several articles, blog posts, from people talking about 10 things or 7 things I learned about myself while traveling solo. And I was like, damn, I thought I had an original idea, and I guess I didn't. I was like, damn, it's true. There are no original ideas. If you think you thought of it first, somebody probably also thought about it, probably thought of it the same time you did. But in this case, these blog posts were posted before my trip. So I just thought it was interesting that, we all had the same thought process. So this topic for today, as you can already see, is figuring out things about yourself while traveling solo. And particularly, I will be talking about what I found out about myself while traveling. Because when you travel solo, you learn just as much about yourself as you do about the destinations that you visit, which is, I think, the longer you spend traveling solo, the more you learn about yourself. And so I feel like this was a big, introspective adventure for me. And as much as I love traveling with friends and with family, which is tons of fun, there is just something very special about traveling solo. And I've seen it on several lists, things you should do before you turn 20, or not 20, that's really young. Things you should do before you turn 30 or 40, or travel must-haves or must-dos. And, traveling solo is always on it. And I always see questions, I'm on at least 2 groups for traveling solo, particularly for women, particularly for Black women or women of color. And, people join these groups even when they have not traveled solo, because they want to get as much information as possible. I've actually also done a podcast episode really early in my podcast history. I think it's podcast number 3 or 4. But I will repost the link to it in the show notes, or you can just look for it. But I talk about, like, figuring out how to travel solo, as travel international travel, figuring out international travel, or solo international travel as a woman of color. That's what it was. Figuring out solo international travel as a woman of color, or as a black woman, something like that. And so I talk about my experiences and how I was planning for my trip to Cartagena, and that's how that podcast episode came about. But this is something a bit different. This is not about the planning process and where to stay and how to know you're safe, and safety precautions and activities and all this other stuff. This is about learning about yourself. It is this learning experience that I had, and this perfect time that I had for deep introspection. And I think that's why solo travel is so good, and why I recommend it, and why so many people recommend it, because of how much of a learning experience it is, and especially for learning about yourself, and for having a time to have some deep introspection, especially if you're adulting, and you are married, or you're in a relationship, or you have kids, or you're working full time, and you just have so many other things to do, so many people that you have to answer to or care for and think about. And for some people, they don't have enough time to actually think about themselves. And so traveling solo, when it gives you that time to actually think about yourself, because there's so many things going on that you have to decide, concerning yourself. Where am I going to eat? Where am I going to stay? How long am I going to travel? How much money am I going to spend? How am I going to get to from point A to point B? Like, these are all things that you are figuring out for yourself, and not, consulting or talking with somebody else, your travel partner or travel partners, to decide. So that is why it is this great time to kind of just really learn things about yourself. And you'll learn things that you never even imagined, I'm sure. But again, I'm giving you guys a little bit of a peek into my own kind of my own inner world, and the way that I think. And I thought that this is, be a fun kind of podcast to do. So, traveling solo can give us some of the answers that we've been seeking, and help us discover the meaning of all of our unclarified thoughts. So things that you're not quite sure about. Like, I know for me, the travel, even though I planned it in November before I even applied for this new job, or just the jobs I was applying to, that I didn't even realize that it would be a good distraction for me while I waited. That, like I talked about in the episode about the interview waiting game, I was expecting to hear back from them a lot sooner than I did. And this trip actually turned out very well, because I was very much distracted, because I had so many things to think about, during my trip, that I really couldn't worry too much, or spend too much time worrying about when they're going to get back to me, if they're going to get back to me, what are they going to say. And there was a little bit of worry in the back of my mind, but then I also had to, again, worry about other things. Like, what am I wearing today? How am I going to get all my sunscreen on? How long am I going to spend at the beach? Am I going to be able to contact my tour guides if they are late or not late? Like, what tour am I going to go on? What flight am I going to take? What destination am I going to next? Like, all these things. Where am I going to eat tonight? Where am I going to eat tonight? All these things I had to think about that, took up my time. And then by the end of the day, I was so tired, I just go to sleep. So, didn't have time to really, I kept myself busy, which was one of the tips I gave about the, interview waiting game, is keep yourself busy, move forward, move on with your life. And then when you hear from them, you hear from them. So this actually worked out very well for me, because, I came back, I was trying to acclimate and get readjusted back to life on Eastern Standard Time. And by the time I got fully readjusted, or close to readjusted, I heard from them. So, it was a week after I came back, I heard about the job. So it just worked out very well for me. But with more time for you to do some introspection, you might be surprised about what you learn. So here are 5 things I've learned about myself from traveling solo. So I'm going to go straight into this, so So number 1, I am a minority, particularly a racial and ethnic minority, but I am privileged. So I wanted to put it that way. and I'm literally giving it to you as the thoughts came to me. So this could come in a better order if I actually was like really, trying to plan this out. But this order is actually the things that came to my mind while I was traveling. And so, like, these are the first things that came to my mind. One, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm such a racial and ethnic minority. And particularly from this trip, the fact that I spent a lot of time, and I know for some of you, for as long as I had my Instagram stories going until my phone broke, I was talking about how many black people I saw in a day or on the plane or blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't just doing it to be funny. I was doing it, one, because it was so obvious to me. It was just something that became, like, it became so abundantly clear to me about my minority status as a black woman, as a black person, as a person of Caribbean descent. And so it was all these things put together that really just made me realize my differentness. Is that a word? Like how different I am, the fact that I'm a minority. And when you start talking about what minority means, so I'm gonna put my professor hat on. Toya T, PhD, Dr. T's in the house right now. So when you talk about minority, you're talking about race. You're talking about when you're talking about it in terms of dominant group and minority group, it never has to do with numbers. It has to do about power and privilege, right? So, the group that is the group in power is the dominant group. So in the United States, the dominant race is the Caucasian or white race. Because of the power that they have. It has nothing to do with numbers, because if you look at something like, apartheid South Africa, the black Africans were the majority in numbers, but the white Africans were the ones in power. So they were the dominant group, and the black Africans were the minorities, the racial minorities, even though they outnumbered the white Africans, white South Africans. And so in this case, again, when I'm talking about racial and ethnic minority, it's like, in terms of like people of color, and you're talking about people who are just not white, then I was not in the minority. I was in the dominant group. I was among, the majority of people. I was among the people that did have, that you see in positions of power, right? Because I am not white, and majority of the people around me were Asian, or particularly Thai, where I was. Or some Asian background. And so if you use it that way, yeah, I'm in the dominant group. But being a black person and not being Asian, made me a minority, right? And being a tourist made me a minority, because you're talking about, I guess that's kind of hard to say, because tourists do have some kind of privileges, like they do have some kind of power. But then that's why I said that I realized I'm a minority, but I'm privileged. It's a whole complicated thing. So I talk about the racial aspect of it. So I looked around, I didn't see any black people. I'm just gonna go straight to it. Let's be blunt. I didn't see any black people. I swear I was the only black person on my flight. When I got from Boston to Hong Kong. When I got to Hong Kong, I barely saw any black people. I saw maybe like one or two. I thought they'd be on my flight. They weren't. I was really excited about them being on my flight from Hong Kong to Bangkok. They were not. When I got to Bangkok, I was like, okay, I should see more black people here, right? I don't remember seeing any black people at the airport there. And then I went from Bangkok to Chiang Mai. Definitely didn't see any black people on that flight. I went to my hotel. I didn't see that many people, period, but I didn't see that many black people in my hotel. I didn't see any really black people on the street. And so it just kind of just kept getting like super obvious to me. Like, even though people aren't like pointing it out, and you don't have to fill out surveys and say like, I'm a black person, I'm a black person, I'm a black person. And it's more about like, I'm an American or I'm a tourist. It still was just like, I was just hyper aware of my minority status, my racial and ethnic minority status. And when I got to, so I'm talking about the different places. When I got to Krabi, I saw like a few black people. Again, I think I can count them all on one hand. And still like, okay, so I was like, yo, where are the black people? Like, I cannot be the only black person traveling around Thailand right now. Like, people are going to Thailand. I've seen all the black travel Instagram accounts and social media groups and stuff, and lots of people have talked about going to Thailand. I've seen lots of pictures and videos of people in Thailand. But I was like, okay, maybe I just came at the wrong time. Maybe black people don't travel to Thailand in large numbers. Maybe this is not when the group travel, trips are, and I'm missing it. And so when I went to Phuket, which is way more tourist kind of centered and popular. I thought maybe I'd see more there. I saw a couple, but again, it wasn't a lot. I think I saw the most black people in Bangkok. No, I saw the most black people in Phuket on my last day when I was on a city tour. I saw I think we were all in the same tour schedule. I think all the city tours go to the same places. So I saw like more than 5 black people, and I saw like at least a group of 3 young black women that they seemed to be around in their 30s, and I just wanted to be friends with them. Like it was that situation when you go into a new space and you're like, oh my gosh, black people, can we be friends? Can you be friends with me? I don't know if you watched the show Mixed-ish, but the last episode they had was about a black couple moving onto their block, and Rainbow's mother, who was they're in an interracial couple, so it's an interracial family, and Rainbow's mother, who's black, sees this family and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, and she goes and tries to befriend the black couple, and she's like trying so hard that she's turned off the black couple who were saying like, I feel like you only want to be friends with me because I'm black, and I've had enough of that in other spaces. And she had to kind of explain like, I want to be friends with you, but not just because you're black, but because I feel like you'd understand my experience as someone who is a racial other in this neighborhood. So I felt like I wanted to be like, hey girls, like you got braids, like your braids are real pretty, like where are you staying? But I didn't do that, and I'll talk about a little bit more about myself, where I learned about myself and my comfort zones that prevented me from doing that, because I feel like in that space they probably would have been receptive to it, but that didn't happen. And also when I was in Bangkok, I saw a lot more black people. There was actually black people in the hotel that I stayed at, because the first full day I was there, I went to the pool, the rooftop pool, and no one was up there, and I was just like, chilling. And then 2 people walk up, and it's 2 black girls. And I was like, oh shit. But then they were speaking French. And I was like, ooh, do they not speak English? Like, it's gonna be hard for me to be like, hey girls, how you doing on your trip? If they don't speak English. But then I heard them speak English to the workers that were outside, like cleaning the pool area. And I was like, I don't know. And they were together. And I was like, I don't know if I want to say anything. I won't be that weird person. And then I saw another black woman in the dining place, and I was like, oh, I should say something to her. But she was also like, fully in her eating, dinner alone space and mode. Like she had a book, and I was like, you know what? Let me not be that person, because I hate when people interrupt me like that. Although I don't think saying like, hey sister, I see you, or hey girl, or hi, nice to meet you, or giving them the nod would have been a problem. But I was too much in myself to do that. But let's talk about the privilege part, right? So I talk about all these things about how I was hyper aware about my minority status, but I also was hyper aware about my privilege too. So here are some things that I learned about my privilege. I realized about my privilege. 1, the fact that I've been traveling since I was 2.5 years old, and pretty much thought that traveling was normal and that everyone had a passport. That is a privilege, because it's not true. I realized that some people had never been out of the country before, have never even been out of their state or their city. And I look at them funny, and I don't mean to, but it's because privilege is about not having to think about what others have not done, because you just automatically think it's the norm. And so when I hear that people don't travel, or they've never traveled, or they're afraid of traveling, I just don't know how to comprehend it, because I wasn't even able to fully comprehend. I don't even have memories of my first trip, because I started off so young. And I've said it before, I think that I didn't even know how young I was the first time I traveled. I thought that I had, gone to Dominica when I was like 4 or something, or 3. And I didn't even know, I wasn't even 3. I was like 2.5. And like, I see pictures of me with my, with my grandparents and some of my family members, my maternal family members. And I'm like, I am so small here. I am tiny. I'm not even school age yet. And, my first memories of life were in Dominica, like with my grandparents. And, and I also saw it as very normal to go back and forth, to go on the plane and to fly to Boston and to see my parents there and stay with my mom, and like go back and forth with my grandmother. And I thought that was natural. I thought that everybody did that. I thought that everybody had a passport. And that, I realized, is a privilege. It is very much a privilege. And even talking about passports, I've learned recently about passport privilege. and the idea that the type of passport that you have, like what the country of origin that you have, is also a privilege in itself, because not every country has access to certain countries. And so the American passport has access to a lot of different countries where you're not required to get a visa before you travel, and you can just get a visa there. Like, I didn't have to fill out a visa application before I showed up to Thailand. I was able to get it there when I arrived in the country with no problem. And they actually allowed, I looked at it and it said that I think they gave me a month. So I could have been traveling in Thailand for a whole month, without having to really worry about, visa requirements and them only giving me a day or so. And I've heard about people traveling and, they didn't have the quote unquote right passport, and them being given like 2 days or a day to stay in a country because, of issues that the receiving country has with the country of origin of the person traveling. So realizing that I have passport privilege, I have travel privilege of having traveled before. And at this point in my life, I said it in the last episode, like, I have goals of like, before I turn to 40, I want to go to 6 of the 7 continents, and I'm already at 5 continents, and I only have 1 more left. Like, that is a privilege. The fact that I've been to over 31 countries, that is a privilege. And I've been to several states. I have not counted the states, but I do have a map now. Thank you, Tania, for giving me that map again for Christmas. And I've been to quite a few states, and I'm actually going to be going to a new state this month. I'm going to go to Missouri, to St. Louis for the first time for a Pokemon event, but I'll be quite honest about that. But, it's nothing to me. Like, oh, I'm just going to go to St. Louis, I'm just going to go. Like, what? They're having an event there? I'm just going to go. Just going to buy a ticket and go. But that's a privilege. The way I just said it was like, very nonchalant, and that's a privilege. The fact that I don't have a flying phobia is a privilege, because I've heard that from several people, like they having flying phobias, and I think it's because they started flying when they were an adult, and they were a child that could remember, and maybe they had a bad experience. They weren't on, reputable commercial airlines, and I can't say that I've always been a reputable commercial airlines. Like, trust me, if you try to get to Dominica now, it's the same way that you have to get to Dominica when I was younger. That is the crazy part, that not much has changed. Things changed, and then they went right back to where they were. Where I've traveled on really tiny planes where they have to, put people on certain sides of the plane to balance out the plane for weight, and that if your bags are too heavy, they might get left. Like those kind of planes. I've been on them where you have to chew gum or give a baby a bottle to help them with their ears popping because they're so close to the propellers. Like, I've been on those type of planes, and I've been on really big planes too. And so, but I don't have a flying phobia because, again, I started flying so young. It's not just about traveling, but I've been flying so young that for me, flying in a plane, flying in a small plane, a big plane, a mid-sized plane is like driving in a car. It's like riding in a car for me. Like nothing. Nothing. Now, I'm not saying that I don't get nervous when there's turbulence and my stomach doesn't flip, but I'm also not thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. Like, I'm not thinking that. I'm not, praying and crying and having all kinds of issues. And that, again, is a privilege from the fact that I started traveling very young. Also, the fact that I have a family that is very supportive of me traveling, although my mother likes to make fun of me for traveling alone. She's like, oh, you're such a loser. Like, what? Hello, lady. If I want to go, I can't wait around for people to go with me. Okay, so maybe you might not travel solo, but I'm in a different generation. I'm a different person, and I ain't got time to wait for nobody. I ain't got time to wait. And so if I want to go somewhere, if I want to go to Thailand, I'm going to Thailand. If I want to go to Thailand and my friend cancels on me, I'm still going. Okay, I'm still going because I just cannot wait on other people to live my life. And that is in itself is a privilege that I have family that supports that I realize that there's a lot of people that don't have family that supports certain types of travel and will try to talk them out of it, which is what happened with my friend, where her family like completely like bombarded her with like calls and worries and, long diatribes and, thesis statements and, arguments about why she shouldn't travel to Asia and Thailand with coronavirus and think about your health and you're responsible. And I didn't get none of that. My mama was like, did they cancel the flight? No. Check with the CDC to see what they say, or the State Department. If they haven't said nothing, if they haven't banned this country from us, from you entering, then go. Be safe, be aware, wash your hands. Use a mask when you're on the plane, even though now we're learning that the masks aren't as effective as we think they are. But still, washing your hands is. And she was like, wash your hands. Here's some extra sanitizer. And that was a privilege that I didn't have that. I didn't have parents. Like, my father was a little bit worried, but like he wasn't going to do nothing. He didn't have any power to do anything. And he still gave me some travel money at the end to show, like, he's fully supportive of me, traveling by myself. And I checked in with them, and it was always like, oh, what are you doing today? Like, what's going on today? What did you eat today? Like, anything fun? Like, they were very, very supportive. But again, I realized that it's a privilege that not everybody has. Like, not everybody has parents that have traveled. And I guess for me and for other people who are children of immigrants, it's a different story, because for most people who are children of immigrants, particularly Black immigrants, so they're coming from the Caribbean, from Latin America, from Europe, from the African continent, South America, like, these people had to take a plane to get to the United States. And so they're already comfortable with the whole idea of traveling to someplace else, like international travel. And so I think that's why, for me, my family doesn't have that same kind of worry about traveling as other people may have who have, native born American parents. So number two, something I learned about myself, the inner monologue. I need to talk to myself a lot nicer. I got some really crappy inner dialogue. So before I talk about that, did y'all know, that was me. Did y'all know that many people have no such inner dialogue? I only learned this year, and I think that it became a big news story at the beginning of this year in January, about how someone talked about, and researchers have backed this up, that some people's thoughts are, they don't have inner monologues. Like, for some people, their thoughts are like sentences. They hear them in their head like I do. And some people just have abstract, nonverbal thoughts and have to consciously verbalize them. And most people aren't aware of the other type of people. Like, some people aren't aware that there's some people that do not have an inner monologue. That some people, the only time that they hear their thoughts is when they speak them out. And they have to speak them out to actually hear their thoughts. I am not one of those people. My thoughts are in my head. It runs all the time. And I know, and I've realized from the fact of being alone for 2 weeks, that I have a very active, nasty inner voice. She could be a bitch. She's paranoid, and she's extremely self-conscious. Okay. Like, it just, ooh, child. Like, I sometimes I gotta tell my inner voice to shut up, because it is going crazy in there, just like thinking up bad thoughts like, oh, girl, you look fat in that outfit. You shouldn't wear that. Oh my gosh, you should be embarrassed. Look at all these people. How did you allow yourself to let yourself go? Look at all your friends that seem to have stayed fit, and you sitting there and getting fat, and you're not even pregnant, had no baby. Like, what's wrong with you? And these people are probably thinking that you're weird because you're traveling by yourself, you eating by yourself. Like, all these things ran through my mind while I was traveling, particularly at night when I was alone, or if I was eating dinner. Not so much when I was in the water. Like, I'm a water sign. I'm a Cancer. Like, being in the water, being in the ocean, just like, it just soothes me. Being in the sea, it just soothes me. Like, I just let go. My mind just goes. I look at trees. I look at the sand. I watch people. I just before I know it, like, hours have gone by. My fingers are wrinkled. This is exactly how I knew when to get out the water, was when I looked at my hands and my fingers were wrinkled, and I was like, okay, it's time to get out. And probably get something to eat or just leave the beach. But my inner self-talk is just so bad, and I need to work on it. I need to, as that song by Dream Doll goes, talk to me nice. That's what I be saying to myself. Talk to me nice. Talk to me nice. Okay, Latoya? Okay, inner Latoya, talk to me nice. Stop being so mean. Stop it. It's one thing to be like critical, like, try to, have some inner critique about your work, or about like, like, oh, you should like move this a little bit, or this would be better. Or maybe you should like look over this again. It's another thing to be like a complete, just utter, see you next Tuesday to yourself. And that's what I found, is that I need to work on my inner monologue, since I have one. If you don't have one, I don't know how that works out. maybe you're better for it. Maybe you have a way better, self-confidence. But maybe you're not as self-conscious as I am. I think that's where it is. Like my inner Latoya voice is just so bad, and can even like when I was talking about it being paranoid. So there was a second, like when I was like the first 2 nights I was in Krabi. I actually thought I had coronavirus. This is not funny, but I did catch like a bit of a virus, like a cold. And I realized, like, I already have respiratory issues myself, and like, traveling and not sleeping, not sleeping regularly, and flying and traveling so much. And so, I would never suggest people do what I did, which was just like I traveled more than 24 hours because I did the whole, 15-hour flight from Boston to Hong Kong. And then I had like a 2-hour layover in Hong Kong. And then I had the, 2.5 hour flight from Hong Kong to Bangkok. And instead of staying my behind in Bangkok and sleeping for a night and resting, since like I was a whole day ahead and completely missed an entire day, I decided I'm gonna go to Chiang Mai, and then I'm gonna have, which is another 2 hours flying, and then I'm gonna schedule a tour for that night, which means that when I got there, I didn't get to just go to sleep and relax and maybe wake up later and get something to eat. No, I had to get up by 7 o'clock, and I arrived there maybe about like 4 o'clock, maybe 4:30, and I needed to be able to take a shower, get dressed, and take a little nap, and then go out, and that was just not good for my body. I just it wasn't good. And then the next day I had a 6 a.m. Tour, a sunrise tour, and I was like, yo, do you hate yourself? Like, I just was not taking care of myself. And so I got sick, and I didn't have like a sore throat, but I had like a headache. I thought it was a sinus headache. I had a headache. I didn't have a stuffy nose, although I didn't have a stuffy nose. I had a cough, but it was only a cough because I feel like I think from wearing the mask too much, like we're like cycling air, like over 24 hours of wearing a mask is not good for you, especially if it's not like what we learn now, the right kind of mask. Because I had like a regular like surgeon's mask, which is not the kind of mask that they would suggest to help you with that. And even on that, if you get anything inside of those masks, you have like the right type of mask, like the ones that completely adhere to your face. If you put it on in the places where there's infection, you're going to keep that infection inside your mask. So you're not helping yourself. And I was so uncomfortable in that mask because I swear it's just like it kept fogging up my glasses. Like I just was breathing hot air, like circulating hot air to myself. And it's sometimes I would try to swallow and the water would go down the wrong way, or try to like quickly drink water while wearing my mask, like taking my mask off a little bit, and like the rush to put it back on, again, water went down the wrong way. I swear to God, I seem to have a problem drinking water, just period. Lately, I'm always like almost choking on water. And so I think that on top of the fact that I wasn't sleeping and I was moving so much, didn't help. So I had some body aches, and I had a bit of a fever, which I think it was just my body trying to get rid of whatever like virus from traveling I got from being around a lot of people and being in these crowded spaces, which is more than I have been in the last 6 months since I haven't been working, and I've been mostly home in the suburbs. So, when I was like up, and I'd wake up and I felt like my head was hot and my body was aching. I was like, oh my God, I caught coronavirus, and my mama's gonna be so mad at me, and my daddy's gonna be like, I told you, and all this stuff. And like, I can't believe I'm so stupid. And my friend's gonna be like, I told you, you're gonna catch coronavirus. So I had all these things going through my head, but then I looked up like the symptoms, and I was like, I don't have half these symptoms. Like, I really don't. And so I went to a pharmacy and got some like pretty much some Tylenol, not Tylenol. I think it was more like Advil, cold and sinus, because it was ibuprofen instead of acetaminophen. Because I had Tylenol, I was using Tylenol to deal with my headaches and my body aches, and it just wasn't working. So I went there, and she was like, "This could work, and just take it until you finish." And when I finished it, I was way better. Like fever was gone, body aches was gone. The coughing due to congestion was a little bit gone. Although I kind of still have like that cough, like that congested cough. Like there was something in my lungs, and my lungs were trying to get out. Like my body was trying to get out. But But that inner voice, that little inner Latoya was like, I told you so, you so stupid. You should stay your behind at home, and you gonna die from coronavirus up in Thailand, and your mama gonna be sad and upset with you. Your dad gonna be like, I told you so, and he gonna be sad and upset. And so that's what I also learned. So another thing I learned, number three, comfort zone. I learned about my comfort zone. I learned that I'm fine alone. I have no problem spending time alone. I mean, I was an only child for 10 years. And so I had no problem playing by myself as a child, because I had plenty of toys, and I had a very vivid imagination. I still have a very vivid imagination. I relish in the times that I'm home alone because I live at home with my mom and my brother, and when they're not home, it's a blessing. It's like Christmas morning. And I know those days when they won't be home, and when they, change those plans, I get really upset. It's even funnier that I get upset at my mother because it's her house and she pays the mortgage and I don't pay her no rent. And I'd be like, damn, so what you doing here? You can't go to work or go somewhere. Damn. And she's like, I can't be in my own house. And I'm like, oh man, you're right. It is your house. But I like being alone. I like spending time alone. But what I don't like is I don't like feeling like I'm excluded or ignored. I don't like being in groups of people and feeling like no one wants to engage with me, even if I don't want them. I don't want to be like talking to them, like having a full on conversation with them. I want people to at least say hi to me, or when I enter into a space that they acknowledge my existence. And I'm not saying that happened often. Like it didn't really happen. Like I was on these tours, and that was the good thing that kind of kept me engaged with people and getting to talk to people, was that I went on these tours. I went on tours in Chiang Mai, and I went in tours for my entire trip in Phuket too. So like they pick you up from your hotel, and everyone says hello, goodbye, like, and you spend. I was on these long, like several hours tours, like half day tours, full day tours, and so you get to know these people that are in your group, and you're talking to them, and as much as you want. I think I talked the most at the temple talk, at like the dinner at the breakfast table, and I talked a lot on the Fifi Islands tours because we were like, we were on the speedboat for a long time, going different places. And, like I liked, talking with people, but not having to like fully engage with strangers because I find it just very weird. I don't like small talk. And I felt like we weren't having small talk. We were having talk that had to do with what we were actually doing and getting to know each other, like, finding out little details. And I just found that interesting. But, and I talked to the tour guides too, and so that helped. But I don't like feeling like if I'm standing there and trying to get your attention, like you're ignoring me. I don't like that. I also don't like being harassed. So think about that. I like being alone, but I don't like being ignored or excluded. And so I want the option to be a part of the social group if I want to, and be open and have it be open to me if I want to. But I also don't want to be like harassed and targeted. So I hate, like, it gives me like real anxiety. I hate like the whole like the people trying to sell you things. And so that's why I really liked Chiang Mai, and why I really liked Krabi, because there wasn't a lot of, well, no, I didn't really like Krabi like that before that, but because Krabi had a lot of like people outside the restaurants, like, hey, how you doing, come check this out, check out our menu. But it got really bad in Phuket, particularly where I was staying, and not so much in Bangkok. So except for when I went to Khao San Road, which is like a big touristy spot in Bangkok. But I don't like being harassed. I don't like people trying to sell me things. I don't like people like trying to convince me to do things. That's why I didn't like Bangla Road in Phuket. And I only went there once at night, because that first night when I went, it was just like overload. Like everyone's trying to get me to buy something, and then they're trying to get you to go into the strip clubs and see some titties and ass and some penises, and they want you to come in and come to their bar. They want you to come check this out, check that out. Hey, miss, you want to buy? You want tuk-tuk? You want massage? You want braid? You want... I don't know. Well, no one asked me if I wanted braid. But they did ask me, do you want tuk-tuk? Do you want massage? Do you want a suit? Do you want like, oh, like, I was like, no, leave me alone. No. Just leave me alone. I do not like that. I went to the mall today, and there was this there. I was going for a Apple Store workshop because I wanted to learn more about how to use my new laptop, which I got last September. But they have like these free workshops, and so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna take advantage of it since I have a little bit more time on my hands since I don't have to concentrate on applying to jobs uh, like I have been doing for the last couple months. And so there's this store right near the Apple store. And the last time I went to the Apple store was to buy my new phone or to find out if they could fix my phone. And and I ended up having to buy a new phone, like $500 that I did not intend to spend, but I had to. And so I walked by the store on the way back. So the first time she's like, oh, I like your shirt or whatever. And I was like, oh, thank you. And then she's like, oh, I like your nails. I was like, okay, thank you. And then she kind of convinced me to come inside her store. And then I realized she was trying to sell me like some body scrub and some lotion. It was like $75. I said, girl, yes, it's nice. Yeah, nice product. Smell good. My hands feel great. But I just spent money. I just bought a phone and I didn't intend to buy a phone today. And I ain't got no money, none, to be giving you for some $75 hand cream. I don't care if you want to give me a discount. I don't need it. I don't want it. I am using straight up coconut oil, like raw virgin coconut oil that I got from Trader Joe's. Okay, that you can eat, cook with, put in your hair, put in your nails. I'm rubbing that on my body, and so I don't need your expensive, smelly, perfumed body scrub and lotion set. And so I saw her today when I was like going, and she's like, "Hey, I like your jacket," and I was like, "Uh huh." And then she's like, "I have something to show you. I have something." I was like, I kept walking, and I was so annoyed by her and her harassment that I actually went upstairs when I was gonna leave. I went upstairs. I wanted to see if I could get some food, but there was no food there. And instead of coming back down the way I came, I went all the way around above, and then took the other escalator so that I could avoid her, so I can to get back to my car. That is how much I don't like being harassed. That is how much I don't like those kind of spaces where people are constantly trying to get your attention. If you try, like, I do like if you engage with me in a way that is not harassing. And so I had conversations with like random people in Thailand that shows me like I'm an introverted extrovert, so I have no problem like being on stage, being center of attention. But I also am very awkward in new surroundings where I don't know people. And so that's why I'm okay being alone, because I'm like, cool, but I don't want to feel like people don't want me around or don't want to include me. But like there were several times where people would just ask me questions. So when I was in Krabi, this guy asked me, "Hey, are you from Ghana?" And I said, no. He asked me if I was from South Africa. And I said, no, I'm from America. And so he was like, "Oh, what part? What part?" I was like, "Oh, I'm from Boston." And he didn't quite know where Boston was, which I also realized that was something that I realized, that people don't know where Boston is. It's not as a well known city as I thought it was, outside of the United States. And so I was like, "Oh, it's near New York, like close to New York, 4 hours from New York." And he said, "Oh, yeah, 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 New York City." Right. And so I had an interesting conversation with him, and he was just really nice. He wasn't trying to sell me nothing. He just kind of just saw me as like that black person, that random black girl that's walking around, and was just asking me a question. I was cool with that. The same thing happened when I was in Bangkok, and I was just walking around. I went to a temple and I wanted to get to Khao San Road, and I had Googled a map on how to get there, like how to walk there, because again, I don't like taxis. Because I don't want to have to like haggle with people, and it just makes me really uncomfortable. And I had already gotten I had already gotten gypped. I had already gotten taken advantage of by a taxi driver who didn't turn on the taxi meter, and I forgot to tell him. He's like, "Okay, $500 baht, okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, sounds about right, right?" And then when I took the taxi back, on my like a couple of days later, I realized it was only like maybe about 200 baht from my hotel to the airport, and I was like, "Damn, he got." Like, I would have given you a nice tip, bruh. You didn't have to like take advantage of me. But I was like, I saw he had like a daughter on his phone. I was like, I hope that you use my $500 bot, that you didn't clock in to your job to buy something for your little daughter or that little girl on your phone. But anyway, when I was walking, this guy asked me if I was from Ghana. I said no, I'm from America. And he asked what part. I said Boston. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then he asked me if I liked Obama. And then he asked me if I liked Trump, and I said no, and he started laughing. And then this girl heard me speaking English to this guy, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, hi!" Like she wanted to like practice her English. This Thai girl that I met, Olivia, and so she actually really helped me out because she walked with me to Khao San Road because I didn't know I didn't exactly. I knew there was a turning point where I'd have to like take a turn, and I didn't know where that would be since I didn't have a phone, and so I had everything written down on a piece of paper. And so I was talking to her, and I was comfortable, like fine talking to her. Like she was asking me questions. Like her English wasn't the best, but it was pretty good. It was good enough for us to have a conversation. And she was just asking me a lot of questions about the US and telling me about herself. And like I enjoyed that. That was comfortable. But to I don't like to like just have these like weird interactions, what I consider weird interactions with strangers, which is like these overlong conversations that, you know, they keep initiating and then I only continue because I'm trying not to be rude, but I really don't want to talk to them. So that's me in my comfort zone. I realize that, um, you know, I have a thing that sometimes I need to step out of. Like I need to sometimes speak up more because in the places where I did, you know, speak up and say like, "Hi, I'm Latoya," or say like, "Oh, I'm from Boston too," or something, like just interject into a conversation. You know, in my tour groups, I end up having these really great conversations with people. Or when I just, you know, answer someone's questions, I had really good conversations with people. And so sometimes I feel like I need to engage with people more when I travel, especially if I travel alone. Um, but I'm not staying in nobody's hostel. I know that's how people usually meet people, but like I know there's some like really nice hostels out there, but that's the thing that I don't want. Like I didn't stay in a freshman dorm when I was in when I was a freshman in college because I didn't want to have all these like, you know, freshly out of high school people trying to make friends with me when I wasn't trying to make friends with them. Okay, I didn't need all that. It just made me uncomfortable. Let me be around people who know what they're doing, who not gonna bother me, and will answer my questions when I ask them. I also realized I'm really uncomfortable speaking foreign languages. Like I need to see things. I'm a visual learner, and it talks about people with. Um, I had seen in the article that I looked up that's saying that, you know, usually people who have inner monologues also like learn through visually, like they're really good with visual learning. And so for me, I need to see the words to speak them. And so, but when it doesn't match up with how like you think phonetically it sounds, it throws me off. But for Thai, like there's certain things I already learned about the language, like when it's written out, that like you don't pronounce the H's. And so that's why when you have the word Phuket, so Phuket, it's Phuket instead of Phuket because they don't pronounce the H. And so, um, you know, like being able to see that and then be able to say the words. And so there were certain things that I was like, I learned and I was able to see them, but I was still like uncomfortable with because I looked up like common phrases in Thai to say. And so like krakunka is how you say thank you. And it took me a long time to be able to really say it because I couldn't visualize in my head what it's supposed to look like. And so I felt like when I was saying it or hearing other people say it and trying to repeat it, that I was saying it wrong. And it made me feel self conscious because I don't like to look stupid. Your girl got 3 degrees. And I still just cannot. It's not even about, I just don't like looking stupid. I don't like looking dumb. And so I was very self conscious. I would like whisper the thank yous or just say it in English. But I eventually got more comfortable as I could like visualize it. I had to go back to the sheet that I had and had it written out, and I was like way more comfortable saying it. Same thing about welcome. Swadika is how you say that. If you're a female, swadika. If you're a male, it's swadikrap. But again, I had to see it to feel comfortable saying it. And so I realized I need to deal with that. I also realized that I would like to learn more languages, and that since I have access to my best friend's Spanish language course, since I went on her trip last year and I gave you free access to her course, I should start working on that. That should be one of my online courses that I need to complete because I would like to be more comfortable with foreign languages. I felt like looking at other people that spoke different languages, especially like the tour guides who spoke Thai and then also spoke English, I was just like so impressed. And the people who, you know, the other like foreigners that I saw that spoke different languages, I just kind of felt like self-conscious, like, oh my gosh, you only speak English. Like, come on, girl. Like, you need to be more comfortable like with foreign languages, even though I took Spanish in high school. But again, I didn't have to take a language in college, and I think that's what really was my problem. 4, so I'm going to try to get through this. Four, I learned about things that I like. So this is something that I think is universal about when you travel solo. There are no competing desires that you have to be taken into account in order to have a good traveling experience. When you travel by yourself, you are free to do whatever you want, whenever you want, and that type of experience is priceless. Again, if you especially if you're full on adulting now, you're in your 30s, you're in your 40s, whatever, or you're in your mid 20s, and if you're married, if you have a romantic partner in your relationship, you have kids, you have like a full-time job, you have all these responsibilities, and you constantly have to like check in with other people to get things done, and you're not really sure what you like to do, what makes you happy, what relaxes you, and we start talking about self-care. Now, traveling solo is not self-care. It gives you a chance to figure out what you like to do. You don't have to say, well, oh, I really would prefer to eat, chicken today instead of beef, but like, I guess we can compromise and have fish. No, no compromising. You eat what you want to eat. You do what you want to do. And so for me, I realize that even though I don't necessarily like doing it at home, when I'm on vacation, I like to go to bed early. It's weird. I like to go to bed early. I like to wake up early and I like to go to bed early. So when I was in Thailand, regardless of the time difference that just threw off my normal sleep schedule, I was in bed by like maybe 7, 8 o'clock their time, just knocked out. And I'd wake up like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and I would just stay up. I'd try to continue to sleep, but eventually I just realized like this is a good time to watch Netflix. So I watched Sex Education on Netflix, finished that, watched Lock and Key on Netflix, finished that, like being up really early in the morning. Some of it also worked for the fact that I had like really early morning tours. And so that, gave me a chance to like be up and be on time for those things to be picked up. But in general, that's how it is. When I go on the cruise with my family every year, I'm always the first one to bed. First one. Not my mama, who's in her 60s. Not my brother, who's in his 20s. Me. I'm the first one to bed, and I'm the first one up. I like it that way. I don't know why, but it's something I like to do. Even though at home, I'm usually the last one. If on a good night, if I had a good night's sleep, like 8, 9 hours of sleep, I'm probably going to be up super late. I can be up until whatever hours in the morning and everyone else is asleep. I also like showers with windows and mirrors. It's weird. I had 2 hotel rooms in Thailand that had like a little window that you can look into like the bedroom part. And I left those blinds open. I was like, I like this. I don't know why. It's like a little exhibitionist without being an exhibitionist. Last year when my family went to Cancun for Christmas, we had one of those, but it was kind of weird because there's 3 of us in a room. And so you had to like pull the blinds, like the curtain, to make sure that everyone couldn't see you butt ass naked in the shower because the shower was completely glass. But if I was in that room by myself, I would have had that curtain wide open. I just love that idea of just being able to see the TV, even though the TV's not on. Just being able just like to see the room, have like a shower with a view. I just like that. I also like the idea. I haven't had that experience yet of like outside showers, like those resorts that give you the chance to have like an open air outside shower. I'd love that. I just love the idea of that. I like being in water. Like I said before, I'm a water sign, and I just love being in water. If I have the chance to, I will be in the water. I do not go to the beach to be on the beach. I go to the beach to be in the water. I do not sun worship, okay? I only get out the water to eat, to check my phone, or, to go use the bathroom or something, or to leave. But I love being in the water. I just love it. It's just so relaxing to me. There's just something that it just calms me down. I just feel connected to myself and to like nature when I'm in the water. I also like relaxing more than I like partying. So that goes with the fact that I like to go to bed early, but also for the fact like maybe it's my age. I don't know what it is now, but like I used to really love to party. I used to like love partying when I was younger. Now you can keep that club. You can keep it. You can keep that. Like, can we go to dinner and have dinner and drinks, and then I can go back and watch Netflix and go to sleep? Can I do that? I'm doing that on vacation. It's weird. Number 5, what I learned about myself is that I have a really strong reliance on social media and my phone. So when my phone got wet while I was on my tour, my sunrise tour, of the Fifi Islands off the coast of Phuket. Or I once my phone got wet and I couldn't turn it on, I was in a funky mood for the rest of the day. And I was in the most beautiful places. Beautiful. And it's not like I didn't have another device to take pictures. And so I did take some pictures, but I was just so upset that I wouldn't be able to post things on my Instagram, which I was doing the entire trip. Um, and I just realized how much I rely on my phone. So much so that, like, I had chances to take some like really nice pictures. The tour guide was offering to take, like, want to take a picture, on the edge of the boat with the water and the mountains behind you. And I was like, nah, I'm cool. I regret now. Because when my phone was working, I was like, yeah, girl, can you take a picture of this? Can you take a picture of this? Can you take a picture of me here? And like not being able to get the stuff off my phone. So I learned, if you follow my Instagram, you saw that my phone is like completely just, it's out. It's been water damage. You can see when he opened it up for me, you can see the salt residue around the phone. So like the seawater messed it up. He said pretty much you need to send that shit to Asia to get it like soldered, and then maybe you'll be able to get your stuff off there, or take like $1,500 to get like data removed from the phone. And the only thing that's on there is like videos of me when I went to the elephant sanctuary, and like just videos of me like petting the elephant, and lots of more pictures of me like with the elephants, even though I still have some, and then like some pictures of me on the first beach in Phuket, like in an action shot. I was like, throwing water at the tour guide that was taking a picture of me. And I thought it was real cute. And it was a beautiful, like, background. And I had my blue swimsuit on. I was like, oh, it's going to look so cute on the gram. But I realized that that's not important. When I told my parents that my phone got wet, my mom was like, well, that's something that can be replaced. It's a thing. You have your life. You're not sick. You're still able to travel. You didn't. For me, the only way I kept myself positive was the fact that I didn't lose my wallet. I mean, not my wallet. I didn't lose my passport. And I can get out of this country. Because if I lost my passport, it would be a big issue. If I lost my, the customs ticket that they give you to give, like, departure ticket, that would be a real big issue. But I didn't lose those things. I mean, I also lost $50. The $50 that my dad gave me to buy some food, someone stole it. I swear to God, someone stole it, because I had everything else except for that $50. And I'm like, damn, that took me out too. That took me out, because those happened within 24 hours of each other, that I realized, where's my $50 bill? And I don't know if I left it in one of the safes or someone took it, but like either way, it's gone. I hope somebody found it or took it and used it for good. But like the whole phone thing really just took me out. And I'm really upset that I didn't take more pictures with my camera, because my camera was fully functional, had tons of space left, like still had battery. I had charged it the night before, and I could have taken like really nice pictures. On the other islands, like of myself, like have somebody take a picture of me if I was really upset about not having pictures of myself. And so I realized that I'm just really reliant on my phone, and particularly on social media. I was like, oh no, everyone's going to be like, what happened? And like, I had a good momentum going with people following my stories and like engaging with me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like not going to gain any new followers, because I'm trying to get to like 5,000 followers and, 10,000 followers by the end of the year. And so I got really just caught up on something that's not that important, as my mother had to remind me. And I learned that about myself, that I seem to be really self-reliant, really like, I felt like I kept thinking about it in terms of like, damn, I felt like I lost an appendage. I was treating it like it was an appendage, and I didn't lose an appendage. I didn't lose a finger. I didn't lose a hand. I didn't lose anything. It was just my phone, and it could be easily replaced. And it was. I came back, bought a new phone, got a new phone now. And the pictures that I have on there are just pictures. Most of the time we don't even look at those things a year later. And those were memories that I still have. Like, you can't take the memories from me. Like, I was fairly fully present. Once I didn't have my phone, I was a little bit more present in the moments, and I was forced to use my camera more, or just not take any pictures or whatever. But I realized that like it just really just turned my mood. And maybe I could have gotten my phone fixed if I wasn't such a funky mood, because like I could have like tried to go to one of those like, you know, mall thingies to see if they could have done it, but I just was like so taken out. As soon as I came back from my sunrise tour, I just didn't go nowhere. And I was back by like 2 o'clock, and I could have gone. There was a mall real close, and I could have gone there. And the same thing in Bangkok. Like there's apparently like this really good film repair place that I just was not in the mood to it because I still was stuck on it. So that's what I learned about myself, and I learned that I need to just really think about the things that are most important. And so with that, that's the 5 things that I learned about myself from traveling solo. And so this moves us into the last section, which is just figure this out. See if you can figure this out for me. And so this is still related to my travels and things that come from my travels and the world news. So why are people more afraid of coronavirus than the flu? I mean, not like you shouldn't be afraid of both of them. You should definitely be afraid of the coronavirus. But why are people more afraid of the coronavirus than the flu? And I'm really thinking about that because of the fact that I saw this meme where someone said, like, you know, even if there was a vaccine created for the coronavirus, there's a good number of people that wouldn't even take it. So I don't even know why they're concerned when they wouldn't even take it in the first place, because we have a vaccination for the flu and people don't take it. Like even myself, I only recently started taking a flu shot regularly because my doctor was like all up on me, and like my friends keep having babies and I want to go see them. And so I keep having babies in the winter and I want to go see them. And so I am fully into like, you know, getting vaccines. And now that I'm reading more about it, and I watched that docu-series on Netflix called Epidemic. I got to like understand the importance of vaccinations and why it's stupid not to get them if they're available to you, especially since the flu happens every single year and it affects, it says worldwide, according to the World Health Organization, that 81,000 people worldwide, and let me see. No, sorry, that's coronavirus. So globally, the World Health Organization says that the flu kills 290,000 people to 650,000 people each year. And from the CDC, they say that up to 61,000 of those deaths occurred in the U.S. annually since 2010. So about 61,000 people in the United States of America die every year from the flu. The flu. Remember that year when everyone was getting like really sick from the flu? But you didn't see people like wearing masks and like, you know, looking at people funny during then. You were just like, oh my gosh, like that's so sad. Like, oh, like people need, like I need to make sure I don't get sick. And then when you think about the coronavirus, it's very similar to the flu. The only problem is that we don't know more about it and we don't have a vaccine. But just from what we know right now about like, you know, 80,000 people have confirmed coronavirus cases worldwide. And there's only been about like 2,700 deaths. And 2,666 of those deaths occurred in China. And so people here that are wearing garbage bags think that they will save them. You look stupid. Like, what is your problem, people? This is when you learn more about this stuff, it's the more that I'm like, yo, people are really overreacting. And the news is not helping. The news is supposed to inform, but I feel like it's breeding hysteria. And even on like the social media is not helping either. I think someone needs to do that, needs to do something about like how social media helps breed hysteria and misinformation, like a whole documentary on that, and how it can actually like, you know, lead to people's deaths or people getting sick at a higher rate. Because I've seen videos and pictures on Instagram of people like wearing like Summer Walker, the singer, was wearing a whole trash bag and a mask when she was traveling. I'm like, she's probably not even traveling internationally. She's probably traveling domestic. And even that, girlfriend, how is a garbage bag going to save you from the coronavirus? A garbage bag. Instead of making yourself look stupid. And then I saw another one. The actor that played Luke Cage, Michael Coulter, he put a picture up, and he had like a picture of the person behind him. He's on a flight and he had a mask on, but the guy behind him didn't have a mask on, but had on a hazmat suit, like a disposable plastic, like hazmat suit. The problem was he didn't even have it on properly because in order for the hazmat suit to actually work and make sense for you to be wearing on a plane, you have to have the whole thing on with the mask, with the breathing mask. And he didn't even have like a surgical mask on. And so it's like, what was the point of that? You just look stupid wearing a hazmat suit on a plane. You're going to be hot in that. Trust me, you're going to be hot and sweating. because not all planes have like air that you can control, because that's what I learned from my flights on Cathay Pacific, that I was like, oh, let me get some air. And the only thing you can adjust is the light. You could not adjust the air on that flight. And so I was hot and sweating. That's why, I mean, you always have to travel in layers, but I was like taking my sweater off a bit because I was just so hot underneath in like traveling for 15 hours, and I wasn't even wearing a hazmat suit. And I'm like, dude, you're not even wearing it properly. Like, why don't you have the hood on? Why don't you have the eye mask and the face mask on? You're wearing a hazmat suit without wearing it properly. And that's what they were talking about with these masks, that you have all these people buying up masks, which could be a problem because health professionals may not be able to get masks, or there are people out there that are price gouging and like selling masks for like $600 for a 6-pack. And so the people who actually really need it can't get it. People who are actually taking care of sick family members can't get it. And you're walking around wearing a mask, probably improperly, probably inside out, probably not the right mask that you're supposed to be wearing, and thinking that it's going to help you. And it's really not. I'm telling you again, I wore a mask for over 24 hours, let's say 48 hours, because I wore it more than 48 hours, because I wore it on every single flight. And every single flight, it was uncomfortable as hell. Uncomfortable. It was just hot air. I was tired of feeling my hot breath on my face, fogging up my glasses, going into my eyes. Like, you know, I was getting some cuts around my ears because I had those masks on for so long, and it's like pulling, and you have to pull it off to eat and pull it back on and pull it back, and like all kinds of things. It's just uncomfortable. And I just want to understand, like, why are people not as concerned about the flu and measles? Because we know that just came back, right? We came back from all the people who are anti-vaxxers. So those people wouldn't even, if they came out with a vaccination for coronavirus, they wouldn't even take it, because they'd say that it causes freaking autism or whatever, or warped eyes or cleft palates. They'll come up with something stupid. And, you know, even they won't take it. And so we'll still have this disease around once we find a way to treat it, because because again, we haven't even cured the flu, and it's in the same respiratory virus, family as the flu. We haven't even cured the flu, and the flu kills all these people a year. About 61,000 Americans a year. And y'all super worried about coronavirus when all they're telling you to do is to make sure that you are, coughing into your arm, and if you feel symptoms, and go tell some people, and that most of the cases that they found were mild of people having coronavirus. And so you need to stop with your racism. If you feel like you need to be looking at Chinese people or people you think look Chinese all kind of crazy, or not go to Chinatown to get your Chinese food because you think that somehow they put coronavirus in the food, in your sweet and sour chicken, you look stupid. And another thing that I want to point out about this is that, again, why are you so worried about coronavirus, but more worried about coronavirus than you are about the flu? We now know that there has been cases in Italy, and so I want to know if these folks are looking at Italian folks, different. Are y'all not going to little Italies in your towns like you're not going to Chinatown in your towns? And so that's why I want to find out from my Boston area. If I see that there is a dip in Little Italy cases, then I'll know that people are really scared about coronavirus and not having this thing conflated with racism. And quote unquote yellow fever, And so again, if you can tell me why are people more afraid of one thing and not the other, and they're pretty much the same thing, except one has a vaccination and a good number of people don't take them, you let me know. And with that, I'm done. Okay, folks, if you like this episode, please share it with a friend, share it with 2 friends, share it with 1 friend, actually share it with 3 friends, because 3 is my favorite number. If you haven't reviewed this podcast, please go and review it wherever you're listening to this. Apple, Podcast, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you're listening to this, please go ahead and leave me a review, a rating and review if you have not. It definitely helps. Share the love, share the information. Let's grow this tribe. If you want to hear more about myself, I have been really consistent, but I'm telling you, this month is all about movement, all about just Toya moving and getting things done. So if you want to keep up with me and find out what's going on with the podcast, please go ahead and join the Figure Out Your Life tribe newsletter. You can find information for that in the show notes on how to join the newsletter, where you'll get updates about me and the podcast and keep up to date with everything. And if you have any suggestions or questions, or you want me to start a listener letters segment, please go ahead and email me so we can start this dialogue. And for that, I'm going to get off this thing because this is longer than I expected. But then again, I'm a storyteller. I told you I'm a mistress of storytelling. I just gave you details and stuff on the side so you know me better, and I'd love to know you better. So with that, everyone, please have a blessed morning, afternoon, and evening. Wherever you are, whatever time you're listening to this, I want you guys just to be great, be yourself, and be healthy, and wash your hands. All right, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.